Thank you, Krish. It's my pride and honor to address all of you on the chapter foundation team. Let me take this moment to introduce Mr. Arun Sadagopan. Arun Sadagopan is the Regional Sales Director for MEA for Xerox. Prior to this, he was working with Oracle for the last 5 years and has been in the field of EPM, Enterprise Performance Management and Business Intelligence. Spends over a decade with his experience predominantly being in implementing and selling Oracle EPM. Let's move on to Arun's section, and I take this moment to welcome Arun on stage. He'll be addressing us with Future of Finance. Arun.
Good afternoon, everyone. So while we are sorting out the technology aspect of it, just to get my presentation, I just thought, let's start my presentation on a lighter note. And I was there from the morning, from the keynote speaking. So I just would like to compliment what the TK Raman said about, especially on the analogy of gym. So I wanted to ask a question. Does anyone know, in a year, what are the worst days for you to go to a gym? I'm sorry? Exactly. So the first 2 weeks of January are the worst time to go to the gym because it's going to be completely crowded. You know the reason why is because almost 70 or 80% of everyone, New Year resolution would be of being healthy. And that includes me as well. I've been doing that from 2018. And everyone wants to have a 6-pack. And I only got a family pack, but 5 packs are coming in, and it'll follow. Did we fix it? Perfect. Thank you. So for the next 30 minutes, I would be presenting and I'll be talking about how the role of an FP&A, financial planning and analysis, is actually heading towards the xP&A, and why is it heading, and what are the challenges it is actually solving, and if an organization wants to get into a journey of xP&A, then what are the things that you need to do? So starting off, let's look at the challenges. Now, irrespective of the organization, every management is under the stress. So on the left side there you see these are external stress that they are facing, and then on the right side you see the internal pressure that they are getting in. Now, the challenge is that they wanted to be agile enough, they wanted to be faster in terms of making a decision, but in reality that's not happening. So why they have been under the pressure to alter the course or to be fast enough is because of there are pressure in terms of globalization. And since I'm presenting after ESG, whenever I talk about globalization, one thing that comes to my mind is, have you know about a species of tree called as redwood? So redwood is actually a species of tree which is common to the American continent. So the beauty of this tree is this is one of the largest, tallest growing trees. So they grow to around 300, 400 feet. And when a tree grows to 300 and 400 feet, we all expect that the root would actually be similar or 50% deeper into the ground. But that's not how it works. So the root of these redwood trees are around only 20 to 30 feet. And rather, the interesting thing about it is that it starts to expand on the sideways. So it starts to get tangled with other redwood trees' roots, and it all becomes one. So what happens in this scenario is that if one side of the root gets water or a nutrient, that gets into each and every tree that is there in the vicinity. So that's the beauty of the redwood tree. And similar to that, we all are global citizens. We get impacted with whatever that is happening, irrespective whether it is 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles away, because we are all tangled into the globalization economy. So we can't just blindly say if there is going to be an inflation or if there is going to be a war, that it's not going to impact us. So there is obviously an impact. And I'm sure that you would have read a couple of days back when Majid Al Futtaim, the CAR4 division of it, they renegotiated the price with their principal for around 200 items to keep their price fixed at a particular rate, especially for the 200 essential items. So this is mainly because that they don't want their customers to actually get affected because of the inflation that is happening. So these changes keeps coming into an organization. So the management has to keep on being agile and keep on being moving. And the other thing what the globalization also brought in is the competition. Now, we are not only competing with the local players, we are competing with someone who is globally. They might be outside, but they can actually, they would be able to service the customers in here. And as a job role in Xerox as regional director, that I meet CFOs, I meet financial professionals across different industries across Middle East and Africa. And one interesting thing which the conversation that I had is with a CFO of a retailer. It's one of the oldest retailer in UAE. It's been around 70, 80 years in the country. And they are the exclusive distributor. So they do exclusive distributionship for different retail items which people buy. Now, their business has always been growing steadily, and all the management that they need to think of is, okay, it's going to be 10% increase. How can I make sure that more people come into my store? But then when Amazon came into the market, so the exclusivity in terms of distribution is gone. Because what Amazon did is they signed global partnership with the principal, and they were serving from outside the country to the customers in here at a cheaper price. So they have to go back to the drawing board, and they need to rethink how are they going to survive with these things. So such stress comes from the competition as well because of globalization. Now, when these are the stress that is happening from outside, when the management sits and they wanted to make a decision, the data that sits in front of them is mostly finance oriented. So they only have finance data in front of them to make a call. And the reason why it's only finance data is because the operational data are all sitting in different places. It's all in different systems. And even to make a decision, what they're doing is, most of the people still rely on Excel. Excel is the strategic tool for all the finance professional. So they are very comfortable in using Excel. They're very good in numbers and they're very good in Excel. So they still use Excel, and it's time consuming, it's error prone. So with these challenges that they are not able to be quite agile enough or quite speed in terms of they can make a decision. Now let's look at the planning and budgeting in general. I mean, how it's been happening across the years and how is it happening now and what we feel is going to happen in the future. Oopsie. Perfect. So if you look at 10 years and above, before, planning or budgeting, it's been done completely by one or two individuals in an organization. It's either the chairman of the company or it's the CEO or the CFO of the company. So what they do is that they give you the number and they'll say, you know what, splash it in, give it to a different business unit, and you run the way that you want it. So this has always been, it's more of a top-down that is happening. So in here, they were not looking into what is the need of the business units which is there in order for them to excel. Then in the last 10 years, what we saw the role of FP&A coming into the picture, where it's like more of business partnering. So they go into the business units asking them, what is the budget? What are the things that you wanted to invest in? And based on this, they were going back. It was more of a bottom-up that was happening. Now the challenge in here is obviously the alignment between the top and the bottom. Now currently, they became more in terms of budget owners. So what they have been doing is they've introduced more of a driver-based, but the driver base is more in particular to financial drivers. And what they're doing is that they're doing a mix of bottom-up at the same time top-down. And they were able to, they use EPM solutions, preliminary EPM solutions, instead of an Excel sheets for them to do their planning and budgeting. Now, the problem with this methodology is that we all saw, who would have thought that a ship is sailing and then there is a huge wind and then it made a blockage in Suez Canal? Can anyone dream of that? And that put a lot of stress in the supply chain. So similarly, in here, what is happening is that we are only looking at the financial drivers. We are not looking into the operational aspect of it. So how the future is going to look, especially if you wanted to be agile enough, is you should also bring in the operation managers to be part of your budget team. And they have to be part of it because at the moment they are not. So if you go and ask them, they will only say, what's in it for me? You're just giving me a template, asking me to fill, but you're not understanding what are the challenges that I'm facing. But if you're having your operational team as a part of your planning and budgeting process, so what this will give you an insight is into their operational drivers. It gives you insight into, what's affecting your operation. So when you, at this time, what will happen is that you would have your finance drivers and your operational drivers together while you're making a planning. So this would give you a higher prediction rate for you. The challenge about this, if you wanted to have this, is your organization needs to be transformed digitally. So if we look at it as a planning or a budgeting, the process itself has never changed. It's basically based on your strategic plan, you would get your financial plan. And the financial plan is derived based on the strategic plan, and then you basically break it down into your operational plans, and then you do the reporting, you do the analysis, and then you feed it back into your strategic plan. So this is exactly how it's been happening over the years, and this is exactly how it will happen even in the future. But the change is that because of all these external stress that the organization is receiving, this circle is starting to spin. And if I've met a lot of finance professionals, they say that, especially in logistics and in retail industries, they would have planned in the beginning of the year, and they do the forecasting every 6 months. So on the 6th month when they come, there is a huge deviation between what they plan versus what they forecast. And then they have to make a decision, okay, are we going to stick with the budget, or let's use our forecast as a budget for now? So that's how the changes. So this circle is spinning faster and faster. So you cannot just rely on your traditional budgeting. It's more of continuous planning that has been happening because of the market conditions. So now it's with xP&A to have even more predictable. Every one of your stakeholder is going to be, your operation is going to be part of your planning process. So everyone is contributing. So it will have more in terms of a collaborative and a continuous effort for you. Now, the problem that this will create is that your system should be capable, and in order for you to be agile enough, to fast enough for you to do these things. Now, how different is xP&A compared to your traditional way of planning and budgeting? So traditional way, like I said, it's an annual plan, that you do an annual plan, and you do a quarterly forecasting or a half-year forecasting. Whereas in xP&A, you're changing that process into moving away from your traditional budgets into more in terms of a rolling forecast, doing a continuous planning that is happening. And instead of just looking at your high-level financial plan, we are looking into your operational aspects of things as well on top of your financial plan. And instead of only looking at the finance data, we are looking at your finance and operational data combined to this. And in terms of your top-down or bottom-up, the approach that we do to planning, we are also doing more in terms of scenario modeling, having more in terms of simulations, having the operational drivers into it. And finally, this is quite common, is that the huge reliance on the expertise of the planners that is in the organization. And with operation data coming in, it's humanly not possible for us to look in through all these data and to find the outliers. So with xP&A, you would be actually predicting, you would be doing more of your predicting and your forecasting by the system. All these mundane tasks of collecting the data, analyzing the data would be done by the system. You would actually spend more time actually making the decision on it. Now, how does an organization can get into this journey and move into an xP&A? So we as Xerox, we are seeing that there are 3 maturity of customers that is existing in the market. These are the maturity levels that we see. And everyone has a maturity level. You ask Gartner, they have around 5, and then Forrester has around 4. But we in Xerox, that we simplified into 3. So we are catering to the first maturity level is called as for the people who uses Excel in their organization heavily. They don't have a system in place. So we go ahead and automate that process. And the second maturity level is when the customer has automated his planning and budgeting, and then it's more of a collaboration. It's more of bringing in your operation. So that's the second level of maturity which we cater. And the third one is more in terms of augmentation, where the system does things for you. Now, just a few days back, when I was browsing through LinkedIn, and this is an image that I received. And this could be true to anyone who's joining an FP&A process. And this is actually true even for my presentation. I was actually quite scared. Is it my final version or is it my final version? So similarly, and especially this is a season of budgeting, so everybody will see that a lot of final versions are available lying around in your desktop. So this is the foundation of the problem. And we all say that we are digitally transformed, but this is actually the truth. So Forrester did a research of around 170 companies. And what they found out is 88% of those 170 companies are using more than 100 customized Excel sheets. Now, what is much more scary is the 1/3 of the respondents said that across their organization, they have more than 10,000 Excel sheets. I mean, look at the madness. So how can you be agile enough, fast enough, and if you're completely relying on Excel? Now, if I can explain about what my conversation with one of the a finance professor, especially in Abu Dhabi. So they are in the business of doing space selling. So they sell shared spaces. So they invest in a lot of new ideas and new things. So what happened is that the CFO and the CEO is meeting because they have a new business plan. So they have a revenue model generated in an Excel sheet, and they wanted to present and they see how is it profitable for them to get in or not. So what happened is that while in the meeting, the CEO, and when the conversation was happening, so there was a scene in which he wants to change certain parameters on the Excel sheet. He wants to change to see, how is the return on investment and all those stuff. The moment he changed certain parameters, the numbers did not add up. And both the CEO and CFO now spent around 30-40 minutes troubleshooting why it went wrong, which sheet formula is not actually working correctly. Whereas they should be spending time and actually making a decision whether they want to proceed with this business model or not. So that was one of the reasons, that was the eye-opener for him, and that's when he decided that, you know what, I'm moving away from Excel. I'm going to have a system in place. Now, if you look at an organization, traditionally, if you are using Excel heavily, this is how it looks. You would have a template in picture, and then you would send an email when the beginning of the budget process is happening to your business owners, and business owners will fill in the template, and most of the time you would send reminder emails for them, asking them, have you filled it, have you filled it? And then what you receive would be completely different than what you actually anticipated. And then there would be back and forth, and then finally you would receive, and this is the reason why you will have final one, and the version 1, and all those stuff. So there is no tracking, there is no process, there is no control in terms of how your planning works. Whereas if you have to get into your automated one, when you have an EPM system in place, then it's all under your control. So every planning, there would be an email notification which would be sent, and people fill into the system rather than on the Excel sheet, and then you would be able to control, track the entire process within it. So this would give you a more accurate planning, and at the same time, this would reduce a lot of errors that you typically have, and it's going to increase the efficiency of it. Now, once you have completed automating your process, then this is when you actually start collaborating with more people. You wanted more people to be part of your planning process. The reason for that is that, as per the wisdom of crowd, this is an excerpt from a Harvard Business Review, the more people in your organization, irrespective of where they are or what they do in your organization, being part of your planning process, it actually increases the efficiency, it actually increases the predictability of your forecast by close to 30%. 30% better results would be achieved if you're having more people contributing to that. And this is particularly common if you have known, especially the people in operations, the people who are managing the warehouses, stocking, and all those people, inventories. So they have a muscle memory. So they have been doing this for a while, and then they literally stock up because they know, they predict, there's going to be Ramadan coming in, there's going to be more shipment of rice, for example. So they will ship up all the rice. But when things change, but it will not be linked to the forecast of your sales. Your sales forecast might be completely different, whereas your stocking and all those things would be completely different. So these things would be, but if they are also part of your planning process, then you would have a better visibility on it. So having a collaborative one would harmonize your entire planning process and increasing the accuracy of your forecast. Now, once you have done the second step of collaboration, now we move into your third step, which is more in terms of your augmentation. This is where the system would actually starts to predict. Especially when we are in a digital revolution. I mean, we are gathering data more every single day than we did in last years. So it's humanly impossible for you to go through those data and find certain outliers, find, what are the things which is going to impact your business. Let the machine does these things. Let it collect the data for you. Let it cleanse the data for you and give it to you in a way that it will make your life easier in terms of just making a decision. So that's when you get into the augmentation side of it. But you can only get here when you actually cross the first two stages. And third is transformation. So this will help you, basically giving you more time for you to actually work on, which is important for you, which is making the decision. So with an xP&A journey, at the end of it, what you would have is you would have increased the agility. You have the time you would be spending to make a decision would be higher, and you would be much more leaner in terms of taking a decision and the call. And this would obviously free up a lot of time for you. And with these technologies, you would have less reliance on your IT as well. It's more of a business which would be driving these decisions for you. Now, obviously, what we are trying to do is coming away from your siloed architecture into an xP&A would give you a holistic architecture, which would give you the complete performance of your organization across. And obviously, with this, you need to find a software which actually good in terms of integration, because we are talking about different touch points, which we need to bring in the data from. And the system should be capable to do that, and at the same time, it should be in a position easy for you to work on and to use it. So finally, this is the quote from the Gartner. So what Gartner thinks is that 70% of the new FP&A or an EPM project that is going to be there in the market is going to be not an FP&A, it's going to be an xP&A, and by 2024. So this is what Gartner thinks. Now, I would like to share my experience with my conversation with one of the CFO of a conglomerate. So, he is a very close friend of mine, and I went and met him because he is now in the process of going in an xP&A, and his organization was in the first stage where they were using only Excel sheets, and they were not having any system in place. They were very comfortable doing an Excel sheets. So we went in, we had a coffee with him, and me and him were discussing not in terms of the project. We were talking more in terms of how his business is going and how the world is looking at and all this. So just a regular chat. So we finished, we had our coffee, and then we were walking into his cabin. So while we were walking into the cabin, he suddenly looked at me and he said that, "Arun, do you ever time traveled?" And I was like, okay, it was completely out of context. We were talking about the economy and the war, and he suddenly says time travel. I thought, okay, maybe he's going to say that, it's better that we look into before COVID and all those stuff. And he said that I actually do that every day. And now I said, look, man, we are friends. I've been listening to whatever we have been speaking from beginning, but now you got my undivided attention because you're saying that you time travel. So he went in, and then I was quite curious to know what he was going to say, and then he sat down, and he turned on this desktop, which was actually, there was an Excel sheet that was open. And he said that 25 years before, when he started his career as finance, the first tool he actually learned is Excel. And everything around him has changed. We paid for the coffee with Apple Pay, and he comes to office in Uber. Everything around him changed, everything is mobile driven. But one thing that did not change is the Excel in front of him. And he said, so we talked about the maturity level, we talked about these, when you want to do it and how you want to do it, these are the ways. But the first thing which you always need to take is that the change that you need to think that, yes, this is the time I need to change. And that's the first step which you take. That would be all. Thank you.
Any questions?
Hi, Arun.
Hi.
Thanks for the insightful presentations. Just for your information, we have implemented JUDOX, and I'm the one who was impressive actually about the capability of the software. But what we have seen that the dilemma of the developer. So we have implemented the softwares, but the developer itself doesn't have, you could say, the experience for the implementation. So we tried a couple of times to get back to the JUDOX, and they supported us, frankly speaking. But why I'm saying that, because we need to insisting on the developers themselves. We have a sophisticated and capability software, but the implementers doesn't understand how to implement it in the way that we need to look at it. So that just I would like to enlighten you about it. Just, we are happy to have kind of these softwares, but the implementers needs to understand how to create a value of these softwares.
I completely agree with you. Yes, I didn't know that you are JUDOX customer, by the way. It's a good news. Yes, it's obviously the person who is implementing it and the vision that he has when you're implementing. I'm not sure, which stage you were before JUDOX and what was your ultimate goal when you implemented JUDOX. But maybe we can sit together and then we can discuss how we can take it to, if you are in the stage 1, how can we take it into stage 2 and 3. But that's a good insight, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the nice presentation. So I have 2 questions. So how do you compare your software with the Hyperion or the SAP BPC? So it's kind of a similar tool, or it would be advanced to compare to those tools?
So, okay, so SAP BPC is gone, so they have stopped it now. It's only Oracle, which is there. SAP is coming up with SAC. So they revolve around the Office of Finance. So they are all financial tools which would help you to make a decision in terms of finance. Whereas what JUDOX does is it's more in terms of extending it outside the Office of Finance, having an integrated planning approach, meaning your operation and your finance, so that you would have a better in terms of prediction, in terms of your plan.
Right. And second question is, can it be interfaced with the SAP?
Yes. Actually, JUDOX is a German software company. Around 60-70% of our customers use SAP. Thank you.
So I would like to invite Mr. Adi and Ms. Priyanka and our social leader Anu to come forward to deliver the memento. Thank you, Arun, for the wonderful section. Raju Dutta, please.